The thoughts and opinions of Skylar Sylvie expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of the Grimm Times podcast or Jeff Jarman. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Hello, people. This is Skylar Sylvie, and welcome to the Grimm Times podcast. And here with me, as always, is this guy.
Jeff Jarman of The Jeff Jarman Show.
Yeah, any hooter. The overall point is, with this one, is we're going to be discussing video games. More specifically, in this podcast number 4, we will be discussing Mass Effect Trilogy versus Halo 5. Sorry, I get that confused with all the other freaking Halo games. In this, I think what I'll have to do is shift my momentary moment of rantings to Jeff.
All right, so yeah, we'll just pick it up. I guess we're going to kind of compare the games, but, they're very different games as well. Mass Effect being an RPG, and Halo being pretty much a brainless first-person shooter. I think it's on. Well, personally, I'm not really a Halo fan, so I'm going to try not to dog it too much. But
I'm sorry. Continue.
Well, I would only see it as like one step up from Call of Duty, or not even a step up. But I mean, the fan base is for Call of Duty, I would say 11-year-olds mostly. I mean, and some early teenagers, some teenagers. And then Halo seems to be really popular with the young 20-year-olds and stuff like that.
Well, I'm going to express my opinion, too, while we're at it.
Okay.
See, the big separation, just to make things clear for the some people may not play video games, and that is that, which actually begs the question as to why they're listening to this. But anyway, the point is that you see, there's a big separation between hardcore gamers and casual gamers. Casual gamers just sit around and play FPS games predominantly, which actually stands for fairy popcorn shooting. And,
or first-person shooter.
Basically, whatever. Anyway, the fact of the matter is that, and then those are generally predominantly the casual gamers. And the RPG ones are generally categorized along with mostly hardcore gamers who are actually also the type to predominantly buy the systems and stuff when they first come out, blah, 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 blah. Well, what I consider myself is kind of that happy medium in the middle. In other words, I kind of like, I like Call of Duty, but I could care less about any of the single player. Multiplayer is the fun part. Killing people, metaphorically speaking, on a video game, online in competitive format, that's fun. Same thing goes for Halo sometimes when it's anything below Halo 3. So the point is that, so when you look at it that way, then you look at Mass Effect, that actually has, a storyline, and isn't wrapped in utter gayness. Not that there's anything wrong with gayness, it's just that it's gay. So, and I'm not.
Yeah, so that kind of explains it.
Right. So the fact of the matter is that, and Halo makes no sense. And to show this point, or to talk about its logistical logic, I'll give Jarman the pleasure here.
Okay, well, basically, let's go ahead and cover what each game is about, and we'll kind of go from there. And by the way, with the casual gamers playing Call of Duty, I have to applaud them for being able to figure out the controls for the first-person shooter, because it's very difficult for non-gamers to figure out a first-person shooter.
It's like watching an elephant try to drive a Prius.
Yeah, it's not easy. And I mean, for some of us, we can just pick it up and it's like it feels natural. Like nowadays, I don't even I prefer first person really, but and then Mass Effect also is third person, just to point out. But really, like Skylar said in the past when he was telling me about it, because I have also played Mass Effect, it's pretty much a necessity to have that third person view for a lot of the story and a lot of the different missions that you go on. and that's another thing that really separates them. But for Halo, Skylar, I'm gonna have you give the brief overview of the storyline because I'm not even sure. I know it's a really weak storyline because they focus mainly on the multiplayer aspect of it, and that's really where they made their money.
Okay, well, here's the Halo story, and this is just basically the Master Chief part of the storyline, which is the main character, unfortunately, of Halo. So I'm going to point out the flaw with the Master Chief, by the way. He's supposed to be this big badass and blah 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 blah, last of the Spartan, thing, and yet he's basically like god of violence, and yet he's taking orders from higher ups who are actually weaker than him. But anyway, besides that point, the basic storyline is actually this. Okay, so there's this halo in the sky, and it's like kind of like a Death Star type thing, except a halo. So there's this group of aliens called Covenant. They are a bunch of religious fanatics, most of them, that basically believe simply that if they take and control the halo, they will destroy the planet Earth, or they could, when it uses a weapon, destroy stuff. And well, Master Chief and humans' job is to stop it because they know in their minds that it will actually destroy the universe. And so they fight over it at the end. That's the whole story.
And pretty much through every single game, they've been fighting over the same thing, right? But just different scenarios.
Well, yeah, and in all the ones with involving the Master Chief, yes, same Covenant, same freaking enemies, pretty much. And then you get the Flood, who is just like a zombified version of the aliens, and then that is actually literally it. I mean, and then they kind of change a few variables. For instance, oh my God, we'll change it up, man. Guess what we're gonna do? Some of these aliens are gonna join the human side. Yeah, it's changing it up right there.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
now they're getting ready to put out Halo 5.
five. I mean,
Yeah.
eight.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen the trailer for this. I know most of the little fanboys and Xbots have. Xbot is a term for an Xbox fanboy. I don't know. I know they have a term for PlayStation fanatics too. I'm not sure what it is. Skylar, have you heard that?
No, I mean now. I mean, I pretty much, like when Wake of the Xbox One. I mean, I still like the Xbox 360. I felt that was a pretty strong system,
It was.
but the Xbox One is just really a big box of great annoyance. Okay, first off, besides the fact it's called the Xbox One, which within itself is quite annoying, let's forget everything we've done up to this point and call this the original.
Yeah, they're trying
Uh,
to reimagine themselves or something.
right.
Going back to my original point, they've released a trailer for the Halo 5 game, and
That was so much funnier in my
I
head.
yeah I particularly I particularly liked the scene. They have this I don't know if it's the Master Chief guy or whatever. They all kind of look the same to me in their
It's
little
it's the Master Douche. I mean, Chief.
yeah, they all have their power armor on. But you see this guy walking through the desert, and he's got like this poncho thing on to protect him from the sand and everything. And then at the very end, this thing rises up out of the sand, and
Yeah,
the
that
poncho
was
comes off.
that was a scarab. And you know what's really hilarious about that? It's funny as hell.
What's that?
I knew that was going to happen at the moment he was in the desert.
Hmm.
You know why?
It, why?
Because the Scarab's this machine that is in several of the games. Okay, so how is it surprising that it's a Covenant weapon, pretty much? How is it surprising that there's going to be a Scarab in the desert when he's walking along?
Yeah.
It was like he walked along and saw an alien. I mean, it was just not surprising to me.
Yeah.
So I thought about what's the most epic thing that they could be able to conceive in their mind that's still within that narrow perspective. Scarab.
There you go. But yeah,
What?
equally as I guess funny, um, is when he takes the poncho off and reveals the power armor. It's like, really? The poncho is going to protect him from the sand more than the power armor? All right, I guess. I
Yeah, yeah, he can withhold laser beams and punches to the face
Yeah.
and shit. Oh, but when it comes to sand, it just fucks up his day.
Yeah.
He gets in, it gets in the crevices of his armor and just cracks up his cracks.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But
And it just goes right through that invisible force field around his armor. No, another thing that makes no sense is he's always wearing the armor. He never takes it off ever. This guy, if he ever gets out of that suit, he's going to be the most disgusting looking. This
he'd be like
motherfucker.
Darth Vader.
He's gonna stink. Really, he won't even have to fight anybody. He just walk up on the battlefield completely bare ass naked, and man, the aliens will smell him and just run away. Maybe
Yeah,
that's their secret weapon right there.
maybe last resort.
Oh, here's a better question: where does he shit or piss? Did he hold it? I'm the
I'm
master chief of my bladder.
I'm not really sure. I guess they didn't see fit to put that into the cutscenes for the game. I don't know.
Well,
But
I mean, if they would have just simply put in the cutscenes of him not wearing the suit, then it would have
yeah,
been interesting. It would have been going, okay, well, maybe he pees then.
yeah.
But he gets up out of bed in the suit.
What?
Okay. Yes, I'm not kidding. He's
Oh my
sleeping in the
gosh.
suit.
How does it? I mean, I can't even seriously analyze that. It's just funny.
He's got like a catheter.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying that he has to. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know if
he
he
would have
actually
to.
does. I mean, it's just like, come on. Or did they just cut his, like somehow figure out a way to make it to where humans don't eat? Let's shift to Mass Effect for a
Right.
second.
Yeah, we're just over halfway through the podcast, so I think we'll go ahead and do the brief overview for Mass Effect. Basically, with this game, it is an RPG. It's third person. It tells a story. It gives you a lot of options, really. I mean, it's made by BioWare, and they're actually a subsidiary of EA at this point. And surprisingly, EA has not managed to screw it up yet, which is really
Yeah.
surprising. But yeah, and it basically it's one of the like. Have you ever read one of those books that was like, you know, choose your own destiny kind of thing? Like, if you're going to do this, go to page 52, or if you're going to do this, go to page
Yeah, flip
30.
back book.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, this is that, but in a game and much more, interactive, I guess. And basically, every decision you make in this game affects the outcome, and it's all three games are interconnected, and that's what really impressed me the most, is that they don't just erase the events of the first game, and you can actually continue your character's life into these next games. And Skylar, you know the story much better than I do into the second and third game, so I'll go ahead and let you pick it up if there's anything that I really overlooked so far.
Yeah, I'll give it a really good example here. Um, let's go just to compare Mass Effect to Halo. Mass Effect 2 is actually in the Smithsonian Museum. It's been placed there as being considered one of the greatest games ever created. Okay, pretty
Wow.
much. And okay, has Halo been put in the Smithsonian? No. In fact, the only museum Halo will ever be in, at best, will be in the bathroom of some fanboy's room, house. Where back to the point, first-person shooters will, for very good reasons, will never make it on a more what would be the term here? It will never make it on as good of a scale as games like freaking, like Mass Effect will get. They'll never be put in such places of prestige like the Smithsonian Museum.
Yeah, a good
Uh,
example of that is if you look in movies. An incredible story like the movie Titanic or something like that, something a little more epic. Apollo 13. I mean, there's different ones that come to mind. They're gonna always be remembered a little bit higher than a movie like The Expendables. The Expendables was
right.
awesome. Like, it had all the badass, people in it, all the gunfire and all that stuff. But it can never rank up with these, amazing stories that these other filmmakers have created.
Yeah, the only thing that be like Expendables that'll ever be remembered. That's like be considered action film, or movies that are more drama oriented, as opposed to like Rocky. That in my opinion
Yeah,
is like one of the greatest movies of all time and should be
definitely.
seen as such.
For sure.
Not because it was some like oh my this boxers beating up people, nothing to do with it. The whole, if they would have just taken that part out, it would have been all right. It wouldn't have been that bad of a movie.
Yeah,
It
you
would
don't
have
have to
been
be a boxing fan to love the movie. You can
right.
know nothing about boxing and still think it's one of the greatest movies of all time.
I mean, it was very inspirational, very uplifting movie. So
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of sounds like a joke, because or like a punchline, but
No pun intended.
exactly, yeah. When that part never made it, no pun intended. It's like, no, I know what pun intended. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
So, but back to video games. Another thing with Mass Effect storyline, um, in my personal opinion and the opinions of many others, it has like the storyline is actually the greatest storyline that has ever been put all, in video games. Not only the greatest, but actually the biggest. It's large storyline. It's not one of these deals where you're fighting even 50% of the time. You're fighting maybe at best like maybe 40% of the game you're actually fighting or something. The rest of it, the other 60%, you're either communicating in a dialogue scene, or there's a few cut scenes, that you're doing that communicating with. And not only that, the greatest challenge in the game isn't even the violence. The greatest challenge in the game, of all things, is just the dialogue. It doesn't tell you ever specifically what this guy is going to say, which to some ears might sound stupid. But I'm not giving this. Isn't even a spoiler. This is you can get this by any trailer on the internet. So it's not. This isn't a spoiler or nothing. But the thing is that when you pick dialogue, it gives you a vague overview of basically what he's going to say, which could be interpreted totally different from the actual words that come out of his mouth. Beyond the point, yes, words actually come out of his freaking mouth when you choose dialogue, which is like, I don't know, awesome.
Yeah.
So I mean, come on. There's only one other game that ever did that, and it wasn't really nearly as recognized as The Darkness. But one of the first 360 games to come out for the 360, and it did that, but it kind of failed on the dialogue end a little bit. That was probably why it was a first-person shooter trying to combine RPG, and it just didn't really work out too well. But I mean, I still liked the game, but I only played it one time and then didn't want to play it again. But the thing is,
Yeah.
is that the overall point,
Yeah.
Halo sucks ass, always has, always will, and Mass Effect is God in the video game world. So yeah,
Well, I mean,
so
we got to wrap it up here. What it really boils down to, I think, is personal preference. I mean, if you really want a good story and something memorable, you definitely need Mass Effect. If you want a brainless shooter, then you can go with Halo or Call of Duty or whatever your personal
it's like
preference is.
it's like for me, it's not that I hate first person shooters. I just hate Halo. Okay, I'll say this: Call of Duty actually has a better storyline in all of them than Halo does. It even has a plot twist at the end of the story.
Yeah,
Okay, I mean, still, it's not a very good storyline. I mean, basically, nonetheless. But the overall point is, it has a better one than Halo. It even, and even the multiplayer is better than Halo. It doesn't have as many of these noob weapons, like insta kill your opponent without like any challenge whatsoever, like Halo does in its multiplayer. So, but the good thing about Mass Effect is you'll be depressed when it's over. You will like never play another game for months. And any game you play, you'll be comparing it to Halo or to Mass Effect. I mean, when you compare it to Halo, it would be just like everything would be great. But
yeah,
the point is like, yeah, you play Mass Effect, yeah, you will sit there. I don't care what your game preference is; it doesn't matter. The Mass Effect actually tries to conform to the best of its ability to everybody's ideal and tries to combine it into one thing without going to the first person low.
yeah. Well, we may have to follow up and do a part two to this one, or maybe just bring it up in a future podcast. There's a lot that we could go into in this whole area, but we're at the end of this episode. Thank you all for listening. For Skylar Sylvie, this is Jeff Jarman, and we will see you in the next episode.
Yeah, go away. Cast number 4, we will be discussing Mass Effect Trilogy versus Halo 5, 8. I mean 5. Sorry, I get that confused with all the other freaking Halo games. In this, I think what I'll have to do is shift my momentary moment of rantings to Jeff.
All right, so yeah, we'll just pick it up. I mean, let's. I guess we're going to kind of compare the games, but they're very different games as well. Mass Effect being an RPG, and Halo being pretty much a brainless first-person shooter. Uh, I think it's on. Well, personally, I'm not really a Halo fan, so I'm going to try not to dog it too much. But I
You see,
only.
yeah, I'm sorry. Continue.
Well, I would only see it as like one step up from Call of Duty, or not even a step up. But I mean, the fan base is for Call of Duty. I would say 11-year-olds mostly. I mean,
Casual gamers. Casual gamers just sit around and play FPS games predominantly, which actually stands for fairy popcorn shooting. And
or first-person shooter.
basically, whatever. Anyway, the fact of the matter is that, and then those are generally predominantly the uh, uh, casual gamers. And the RPG ones are generally categorized along with mostly hardcore gamers who are actually also the type to predominantly buy the.
The thoughts and opinions of Skylar Sylvie expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of the Grimm Times podcast or Jeff Jarman. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Hello, people. This is Skylar Sylvie, and welcome to the Grimm Times podcast. And here with me, as always, is this guy.
Jeff Jarman of the Jeff Jarman Show.
Yeah, any hooter. The overall point is, with this one, is we're going to be discussing video games, more specifically in this podcast.
And some early teenagers, some teenagers. And then Halo seems to be really popular with the young 20-year-olds and stuff like that.
Well, I'm going to express my opinion, too, while we're at it.
Okay.
Okay. You see, the big separation, just to make things clear for the some people, is some people may not play video games, and that is that, which actually begs the question as to why they're listening to this. But anyway, the point is that you see, there's a big separation between hardcore gamers and